somewhere along the line, would like to see something tangible that's done with the
That's a good point. But quite a bit of, in fact, all of the checks that were right for the school system are written for the town of Granby.
Correct.
And it just comes that
Correct.
way. So,
Right.
But I second that request, and thank you for,
Yeah. And Steve
Right,
Nally
yeah.
works very closely with whoever is in charge of student activity funds or, athletics or whatever. He works very closely with those people to make sure the deposits are going into the right buckets.
Well,
So
it goes
he's-
into the student activity account, checking
Right.
account.
Well, it could either go in there or it could go in the early childhood revolving account. Either way, would be fine.
So my only request is, please thank the parent very, very
Absolutely.
much for this generous donation.
When I read that, I was
Yeah.
just,
Yep.
I was amazed.
Really much appreciated.
Mhm.
And I agree
Absolutely.
that we should find out what is
Sure.
done. I'm sure they're going to be curious to find out.
Absolutely.
Okay, so did we have a motion?
Yes.
Yes.
And we had a second.
Mhm.
All in favor?
Aye.
You say aye. Thank you. Aye.
Thank you. Alrighty.
Oh, your favorite topic.
Emergency operations plan. We're coming to the end of the strategic plan, so I need something else to do. I will tell you that based on what I know of national and state standards for emergency operations planning, Granby's plan needs a little oomph, shall we say. So what I'd like to do is establish a emergency operations plan task force. I have a lead on someone who could do some consulting with us that hopefully we can share the cost with the police and fire departments. I've already had some conversation with the two chiefs around that. But again, to involve a broad swath of people at the table, teachers, administrators, parents, one of you hopefully to be with us, the two chiefs of the police and fire departments who are very excited and enthusiastic and ready to go on this. Our school resource officer, having DPW at the table is important. Roads have to be closed or whatever in the event of an emergency. Having the town administrator, because this obviously is both a town and school coordinated response. Once we have hired a director of the Department of Public Facilities, that person should be in there as well. So if you're good with that, I will put out the call tomorrow.
I have one question and suggestion with that. I'm not sure what the norm is, but since, especially during the strategic plan conversations, we talk about our stakeholders and we put a lot of emphasis on involving our students as well. Is there an opportunity to invite students who might be interested in participating for a variety of reasons? They may actually have interest in understanding how these things work. And they are stakeholders, and they may have a different perspective into the conversations as well.
Good idea.
So we can. Other than that, I appreciate it. Thank you for putting it together again.
So we have something presently that
We
each
do.
school is using, following,
We do.
drilling on, and so on.
Yep, but and I know you did some work with, the ALICE training, which is one of the many models of options-based, involvement with regard to, active shooter. But that's not the only emergency, and to be honest, I would think that would be the least of your worries. My biggest concern, and this is the firefighter in me, is this very busy road and hazmat going up and down. I'm more concerned about that than I am about an armed intruder, to be honest, and our plan does not speak to that whatsoever. How do we lock out? How do we shelter in place when those kinds of things happen? In the district I was in formerly, we were working on it when that tornado passed through. So how do you deal with a weather emergency? All of a sudden we all thought, oh my goodness. We brought, as a matter of fact, the other person who should be on this list, and I just realized I called it administrator, should be the school nurse leader as well. Because we also took a look at, health issues, because Belchertown was for 3 years running the epicenter of Triple E, usually right when the Belchertown Fair was going to happen. So there wasn't a response plan again in terms of exposure. The seniors used to have a dunk tank. The dunk tank went bye-bye because it's a prime breeding ground for mosquitoes. We don't need any help, thank you. So again, just even responding to health threats, H1N1, when that came through, how do you respond to those kinds of things? That really needs to be at the table too. So I would also suggest a school nurse leader or somebody from the nursing staff be a part of that as well, to do some work. And basically it involves taking a look at the town in context and looking at what are high-risk factors that we might need to consider, and then what would be the response. There are several lenses for everywhere from, how do you protect from this, mitigate against it, what happens when you're in the moment, how do you recover from it, both short-term and long-term. And I learned a lot of lessons from that bloody October snowstorm and running a high school shelter for a week that really taught me that you can't prepare for every eventuality, but you need to have good plans in place that can kick into place. So,
Thank you. So, did we vote on this?
Vote needed?
you can either do it by consensus or by a vote. It's up to you. If you're
When
good by
plan on getting
consensus,
going with this? When do you plan on getting going with this?
October 20th, because you'll have a strategic plan in front of you on the 19th, right?
Okay.
Yes.
Right.
Because I'm behind on my goals now, so I'm blaming
know why.
and I'm blaming the strategic planning committee because I've been trying to fraud them. So I finally said to them at the last meeting, we're going in front of the school committee on October 9th. Here it is, 19th. So, because I'm behind now.
It doesn't give you a whole lot of time.
No, but we'll work well under
Yeah.
stress. So, unless there is any objection by consensus, I guess, thank you for bringing it to our attention.
Absolutely.
And the last thing under my recommendations is according to the teacher's contract on the first Monday of October or shortly thereafter, the parties are supposed to notify each other of their intent to negotiate a successor agreement. So I figured since we were meeting on the first Monday, it was an opportunity to notify the association that you would be ready to negotiate. Obviously, at some point, I would assume in the near future, they will send their letter of intent to you, and then we'd have to figure out who would be part of the bargaining team, because that contract expires in June. So, in addition to hiring a superintendent and a special ed director, strategic planning, emergency operations planning, welcome to the wonderful world of contract negotiations.
Is it August?
It's June.
June?
Yeah. You have two other contracts that expire in August, the secretaries and the paraprofessionals.
Okay.
And that intent to negotiate doesn't have to be stipulated until February.
Okay.
So,
All right. Yeah, I like the way I wrote this letter. That's
yeah.
It was very brief.
yes, very brief to the point.
Really not a whole lot you need to say. It's
And I
just
don't
like,
remember it, but thank you, Judy.
Did it.
so, if you're all good with that, I brought 2 copies, Mr. Chairman, for you to sign. One that we'll keep on file and one that I will give to the president of the association. I've had some conversation already with our legal counsel, and so we'll be getting geared up for that.
Okay. So that is that for reports and recommendations. Thank you, Judy. Old business after school program.
I, at your request, did speak with the director of the after-school programs and asked if there was flexibility in terms of the numbers of days a week that they could do that, and he said absolutely that if that was the route that you did decide to go with, that they would work with us on that. I did speak to the 2 superintendents of local districts that use them, East Hampton and Greenfield. They're very pleased with what they get from the collaborative in terms of after-school programming. Today, I put out a survey to parents asking parents of elementary school children, their thoughts on what they might like to do. asking whether or not their students had participated in any of this, to date, and, whether they'd like to see a program that has a different focus than want to keep the program we have in place, and so on and so forth. And in lifetime, I can tell you that we currently, I put it out through a Connect-Ed this earlier today, and we have 40 responses since 2 o'clock this afternoon, or 2:30 this afternoon, give or take. Or 39 responses, because the first is the question. So there have been 39 responses to the survey thus far. And I did put the link up on my blog as well, so hopefully we'll see how people feel about that, and I can bring the data back to you at the next meeting.
I'm definitely interested in the data.
So nothing is being started,
No,
so there'll be nothing then.
not
This year,
not for the first 4 weeks. Again,
Just the study club.
yeah, the study club is up and running, but that's a stipended position
Right.
in the teacher's
District
contract.
pays for it. District pays for that.
Right. But again, in the all funds budget approach, you also have authority over all of the revolving accounts and whatever else. So it really is something that comes under your purview. So, if you're going to hire a new director, you need to set what that stipend's going to be. You need to take a look at the fees. Do you want to increase those fees if this is the route you want to continue on? The stipends that are paid to teachers probably date back to an earlier contract. The contractual rate for hourly stuff is higher than what is paid out right now. So we don't get as many teachers volunteering, and I'm guessing that could be why. So, those are all decisions that you need to make in terms of setting the fees and setting the stipends and all of that business.
Do we know whether, say, an organization like the Collaborative, if they say that they can customize it for us, does it make any difference in terms of pricing? Do they change their pricing structure for that?
It would, because it would be less afternoons a week, say, for example, if there weren't going to be 4 or 5 days a week and it was only going to be 2 or 3, say, for example, then obviously the price would shift based on how many afternoons a week.
So they would not necessarily increase their hourly rate or whatever they charge us by? Do we have any details on that one?
How it works right now is they run either 4 or 5 day a week programs. So all of their fee structure, what they pay out and what they take in, is based on that model. So obviously it would shift, if we were to do something less than that.
Because if we already know that there are some factors that do not please folks internally, and we're not in a position to play with that, and outside help becomes an option and the option potentially. We still have to play with the money that we have within the fund, and I think it was about $6,000 or so.
Right, it's currently the balance in the revolving account for this. And again, the Collaborative charges comparable rates to what we might charge. They charge, or pays out, I should say, to teachers. They pay out a $30 an hour rate, which is what your contractual rate is now for extra work outside of the school day. So that's part of what they do. They pay paras more in line with what the para, if a para runs a program, more in line with what they would get for an hourly rate within their contract. So they tend to try to align their payout in line with what local contracts have to say about what people get paid an hour for such work. So,
we're gonna talk about this, but since the subject is relevant, at their last meeting, the director was giving his report, and one of the areas that I highlighted was the after-school programs. And they actually got exemplary status for 6 of their after-school programs. So I guess there is some experience and some success. But I'm not providing this to say that we should not look into the opportunity to potentially create an internal program, but we do have, it looks like on both sides, some good, rich options that we can start considering, so that sooner than later we can start offering the after-school programs.
Yeah.
Cool. Thank you.
So, like I say, usually there's a flurry of activity if I put out a, hi, please dip into this survey. So I'll do it again next week so that, hopefully that will spur more people to get in and, make their voices known so that we'll have some data to look at.
So our next meeting is on the 19th.
Yes.
Right.
Will we make a decision then on the 19th? Will we be in a position to do that?
You potentially could be. I could have the data. Chris Taggart, who is the director of the after-school programs, has volunteered to come to a school committee meeting to talk to you about what the collaborative has to offer, so you can hear directly from him. He asked if he should come tonight. I told him I wasn't sure if you were quite in that place yet, but if that's something you'd like to do, so you can hear directly from him rather than through me about what they have to offer, he would be happy to come.
I think 2 weeks from now makes sense, right? If you open up the survey again next week, give you enough time to collect all the data, listen to a presentation, have a robust discussion.
Yeah. Will that put us in a position to offer anything this semester, before the end of the year?
I think we'll probably be looking at January,
Okay.
at that particular point in time. But like I say, there are kids who are in the study club at East Meadow, and some people, I did look at the survey earlier, wasn't quite this many responses, but I did look at it earlier this afternoon when there were like 25 responses in the space of 2 hours, so I was pleased to see that. And it was mixed at that moment in time in terms of we should keep the program we have, or, gee, I would be happy to have something that's more days a week, longer time, that would, my kids don't come because it's a transportation issue or it's a daycare issue or whatever. Or we have people who are accessing the Children First program, so, and how do we navigate around the things that that are offered. I mean, Children First is not our program. They rent space from us, but still we have a partnership with them. So how do we do this in a way that doesn't necessarily hurt their business either, So those are all the things that you'll have to kind of think about. But I think, again, for you to hear directly from Chris about what they have to offer, I think might be a good thing.
Yeah, I think there's also value, I'm assuming, in these programs, especially in light of the conversation we had earlier. If there is some educational element in there, it's not all entertainment, but educational.
Yeah.
It would make learning fun, and it might impact some of the scores that we're seeing and engagement in school and all
And they've
that.
actually been gathering data, because they do look at the MCAS data for the district in ways that we've looked at it tonight. In Greenfield in particular, they took a look at the data, tried to focus some things on areas of need for the Greenfield Public Schools, and there has been a positive effect in terms of particularly some of the kids who struggle, who need childcare in the afternoon for a variety of reasons. But to have a homework help time or a literacy, enrichment time, and then being able to do things like robotics that are all that science, technology, engineering, and math stuff put together, or be able to engage in theater arts, which is all of those speaking and listening communication skills that are embedded in the English language arts curriculum as well. All of those things, I think, help impact scores for the better, for sure.
Any other questions on this? Okay, thank you. Upcoming business, strategic plan.
You will have a draft on
Yes.
October 19th. We meet again tomorrow night. I have my whip. I'm gonna crack it at the meeting so we get it done. But the group has really done I've had a blast. I've had just an absolute blast with these folks. They've been very thoughtful, divergent ideas, but have been really open, and I think, Emery, wouldn't you agree that it's really been a very open dialogue? Yeah.
Great dialogue. I think the thoughtfulness and the wealth of ideas actually did keep us from making decisions a little sooner, but it was good because the last meeting was very productive, and everybody went to their own corners in their smaller groups, taking different goals in different areas, and at least one goal was produced by each group, so we are in a good place. Hopefully tomorrow we're going to continue working on that.
Right.
And I'm assuming we're going to have one more meeting before the 19th so that we can, at least one more meeting so that we can wrap it up and prepare it
night's
for
it,
this.
right?
Yes. So are you saying that we should come with our sleeping bags and stuff tomorrow because you're not going to let us out? Or?
I think she's
Nobody
saying
leaves
that.
till we're done.
Cool. McDuffie School Review and Approval.
I am going to McDuffie School tomorrow. You have to annually approve their program as a private school. So I'm going over to do a site visit and to get their documentation. So I will have that for you on the 19th as well.
Great. So, since we have the opportunity, and I think we raise this every year, as we are getting into these conversations, are we also exploring opportunities to collaborate on some things? And
Actually, we are. I called the headmaster because of our Title IIA grant. We're supposed to offer them the option to partake in professional development that's funded through that grant. And, I said, we can come to you, you can come to us, however. And I think he is going to send some teachers and representatives to our professional development days to get a handle on curriculum development as well, because he said that's a need for them. So,
What if we don't approve them?
that's a whole other ball of wax, but I'm not opening that can of worms either.
Well, it's-
That would be
If
interesting.
you think about it, it's an interesting relationship, right? Because
Yeah.
on the one hand, they're quasi-partners, and on the other hand, they're direct competitors.
Yeah.
So I
It's an
want to
interesting
know
place.
what they're doing for us. It seems like we're doing an awful lot for them, and
But I think last year we had kids actually go over there and they did a diversity day because, of course, they have a lot of international students as well. So our students went over there and had some dialogue with their
I
students
would
and
like
whatever.
to see more initiating on their part. I don't know if there can be
But they're
a way
taking
to
our
convey that
they're
message.
taking our kids.
but
That's why our MCAS scores are. They're taking our advanced kids an MCAS.
it could be more productive for us, I think.
Well,
And I'm not, as I'm talking,
Yeah.
of course, I'm, just noodling on these ideas, but my gut tells me that they could offer up more something. I mean, you have this smile on your
Well,
face. I'm
you
not
know,
sure what-
Maybe we'll find out.
again, the private school world is a very different world than the public school
Yeah, it's
world,
different.
So,
Yes, and yet they're in our backyard,
Yep.
and we're expected to have this, kumbaya relationship, and I don't know.
yeah,
just
I
have
can't
these
play
feelings
guitar
about
just yet,
it.
but I'll work on that. So,
so I guess we'll hear more next time
Yeah.
on this one. Great. Superintendent's quarterly goals update.
again, next meeting, I'm just going to tell you where I'm at. And hopefully I will have met the strategic planning goal.
Great. That's going to be a great meeting.
Right on.
Albeit late.
Yes.
That's how I started
If
the
it's a
last.
little bit-
That's how I started the last task force meeting. I said I need your help, and they were all like, "Yeah, really." I said I'm behind on my
It's a
goals.
little
I need
bit,
you
it's a
to
little bit
finish.
late. It's understandable.
Well, we just
Understandable.
approved one of them a little while ago, the
Yep,
emergency
emergency
plan,
operations.
yeah,
So moving forward.
Our standing reports. The collaborative is the first one. So we had our meeting last Wednesday. It was a good meeting, the first meeting of the year. Some of the things were discussed that would be probably of interest to all of us. One thing that, first of all, there is actually explored power in that group, that there are 36 school districts from Hampshire and Franklin counties, and we used to get together and have these jolly meetings and go through the list and then come back home, and we'll meet every other month, so 6 times a year, nothing much. The last 2-3 meetings, the composition started to change, and we expressed a great interest in talking about that potential power and how we can actually start advocating on behalf of the collaborative, but also raise concerns that we are sharing here and at the other school committees related to the school district's funding, enrollment, budgets, whatever, and then go to folks, elected officials, or the state, or whatever it is, to say, we are 36 school districts and would like to talk to you about this, or invite them over, which apparently there's an interest to do so. That came up again this time, and there was a good conversation around enrollment, budget, school choice, which were some of the topics that we had started talking about before, so there was a summary of those. Good presentation on equality and equity and the social, social justice and equity program. Something that we can actually probably leverage at one point when we have some time and we have the audience for it. It was interesting. The other thing was the director's report included some of the concepts and elements that we're talking about, which included the after-school program. There are some nice things happening, but as we mentioned before, at least the perception is that they cost money. They have a model and they cost money. So one of the things that the director said he would like to do this year, have broader conversations with the representative districts, pay visits to those districts to see how the collaborative can become inclusive of all of these districts' needs. Because right now, we do go and represent our districts, but at the end, if there's a pricing model, if the pricing model doesn't work for us because of our budget concerns, we don't get to use them as much as we could. And this was a topic that was raised by many of the members of the board of directors. So what hopefully will come out of this, or may come out of this, is that the pricing model may work in such a way that they may entice all these school districts to participate by finding a way to get broader collaboration or broader participation in some of these programs, which in turn will reduce the prices. So whatever services they're offering may be more feasible for us from a budgetary perspective, and we can just go and collaborate with them. So it was actually a very good meeting, and we no longer just leave, oh good, it's 9 o'clock or whatever, it's time, we're going home. There are still questions, and people stay behind and talking to each other to see how we can leverage the power of 36 over there. So that's what I have from last week. Next is West Street Building Committee. Jim?
I'll say a couple words. I know we're this, I think, exciting project is moving forward. We met recently on September 24th with the architect and OPM to talk more about the really schematic designs and materials and so on and so forth. And I know they met with the staff, administrators to talk about that. And I know they met with department heads in town to talk about, fire, police, water, parking, snow removal, and all those kind of things. So I think everyone's getting on board. We've got another meeting coming up October 22nd, I think is our next meeting. So I'm sure we'll have more detailed talk about what the school will look like, where we're, again, just so everybody knows, we're looking to vacate West Street School and renovate East Meadow and put an addition in front of East Meadow. Our public outreach is trying to talk to groups coming up. I'll be talking with Jim Morrissey to the Lions Club on November 3rd. I think November 5th I'll talk to the senior citizens during lunch, music parents. Again, thanks to Channel 15 putting this out there. So hopefully we'll move down the line, because this is a real important project for the future of our whole school system, even though it involves the elementary schools. So things are moving and getting the word out more and more and more. So hopefully things will progress.
And I think the one thing that the committee really would like to impress upon everyone who's interested in the process is the fact that there is full transparency. folks would like to have more information, they can come to the meetings or reach out to the committee. And we are actually posting everything that we get on our website. Is that correct?
Mm-hmm.
So whatever we see actually is whatever the public sees.
Mm-hmm.
The conversations are very thoughtful in the sense that right now we're getting into the detailed conversations around materials and additional features, this and that. There's always that balancing between quality and budget. So there's a lot of conversation around that. But also there were some things going on with the MSBA as well. Some of the items that they were expecting, they received and acknowledged. So we're on track to actually to meet our deadlines, and we are going to vote for it in February. Is that correct?
February at the special
Yeah.
town meeting.
Yeah, we're expecting to have a budget, at least, even though we're going to call it the initial budget. It's going to be our budget probably by December, and then we're going to have we're going to vote. The first vote is in February, the town meeting, and then in March we're going to have a ballot vote for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah, for the debt exclusion. It has to go back in front of the MSBA in January once it comes back from the cost estimators
Yep.
for their final blessing.
Yeah, we still have this submitted by December 1st, I think, MSBA.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
So
Yeah.
we're still on schedule for that.
Yeah.
We are.
Yeah, they
They'll
had
be
to go to
meeting
the.
January 27th, I think, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yeah.
They had to go to the cost estimators at the end of last week to begin to get the process of getting the numbers solidified. Yeah, they kept passing stuff around. I felt like I was at the Home Depot. Floor samples,
Yeah,
brick
was that-
samples. It's pretty interesting. Hi, here's what we're talking about.
It's
Take a
all
look
part
at
of the
this.
process, yes.
Speaking of, I want to see the bathroom at some point. So somebody remind me.
We'll
before
go
we leave.
check it out.
Yeah,
before we
we'll
leave.
do a field trip to
Sure,
the
we'll filter it. It's still a work in progress. That
Yeah.
is not
Okay.
finished yet, but we're getting there.
Next is Shared Services Working Group.
Just before you move on, Mr. Chairman, do you have somebody to go with you to the Council on Aging on the 5th of November?
Not right now.
I can go with you.
I'll see. I have to check with them because I know they. I get their mailings now since I'm in that range, I guess. So somehow they took me off the list or found my name on the list. So I look at. They have a lot going on, so I have to double check as to. I don't know how. I don't mean this. How much people want to be bothered over the lunch prior to lunch or something, but I think this is a pretty simple project to talk about.
Yeah.
And what it would mean for the future of our school. So
Right.
not right now, but I'll let you know.
Okay. Because I know people have been trying to. It's like Noah. You go out in twos, you know. So,
Right.
but I do have time available at the current time on my
Okay.
calendar. So.
Well, we gotta fill that. We can't have any open time on the calendar.
I'm not sure if that meant that you're expecting a lot of rain or whatnot, but
No, I would. Yeah. Well, right now it's open, so it's okay. You could not fill it quite so much. Sunday afternoons are getting old.
Oh,
I was here.
I see.
I was here for
know.
4 hours again yesterday.
I know.
Yeah.
yeah.
I'm tempted to stop in and bring in,
This is what you do after church?
coffee.
After church, you go to school?
Yeah, pretty much.
Church school.
Yep.
Okay, so Shared Services Working Group.
Well, the ad has been put. The applications that were coming in for the Director of Public Facilities for the town of Granby, which includes the schools. I believe we're going to meet Thursday. Is
Yep.
our plan Thursday to take a look at what we have now and plan further because we're looking at again. This position would start right after the first of the year, January 2nd or 3rd, whatever the appropriate date would be. So we'll find out what we have.
Policy Subcommittee, we did not meet today because Mary had a conflict. We're going to be meeting on the 19th.
At 5 o'clock.
Pardon me?
5 o'clock.
At 5 o'clock, yes. And we're gonna report back at that time.
Okay.
And the Superintendent Search Committee, Deanne.
So we had our initial meeting and met the group, and it seems like a really great group that we'll have. And we voted Chief Police Chief Wisher as the chair, and Marie is the secretary. So we started working on questions, and we came up with probably 25 different topics of interest for as far as the questions, and each person took 2 questions, and we had to, finalize the question in a formalized way and then email it to Glenn, and he was going to put everything on a list, and that's what we're going to work on at the next meeting. Really honing in on the questions, taking into consideration the surveys and the focus group information, which he's in the process of compiling, and we'll have more details for us at the next meeting. I will say the surveys were a little disappointing because we only got 44 responses.
Uh-oh.
So, that doesn't give you a great snapshot to work with. It was mostly parents, some employees, no students, and a couple of folks who don't have kids in the schools.
The survey is still open, so I guess it would be up to you as a school committee. Do you want me to keep it open? Because I asked Glenn what he wanted to do about that, and he said basically that was your decision about whether you wanted to keep it open and to continue to try and get input prior to the next meeting, which will be at the end of this month.
I would.
Or-
I would try to keep it
I would
open.
Yes,
keep it open.
I
Okay.
think that's a good idea because we can use the information as it comes in. I mean, it's a short enough survey where,
All right, when I blog again at the end of this week, I'll put that back out there as a reminder.
so the other interesting thing was MASC provides a tiering memo on all the resumes, and we voted as a group that we asked them to hold the tiering memo until we reviewed all the resumes, and then we kind of came up with our own system, and then we would compare it to MASC's tiering memo to see, how in line we were, and
Is this how you're going to be
Narrowing.
eliminating some?
yeah, because
okay.
MASC has, I think it's a 4-tier, the top tier being the most qualified that they consider through their criteria. And we just had a good discussion about, should we look at the memo prior to reviewing all the resumes? So we had probably a good 10-minute discussion on that, and we all kind of decided that it makes more sense to hold that memo from MASC until we, as a group.
How did the focus groups go that day?
They went pretty well. Glenn did send me the report just to check it for factual accuracy. I obviously didn't sit in on any of the focus groups, but from what I saw of the data, it's pretty consistent with what I've seen in terms of just how the district is working and where people
No,
have.
he hit all the staffs, right, already?
Yes, he came in actually the day of the
Right.
meeting with the search committee.
Right.
He actually started with the senior leadership team because I had a
Yeah,
meeting with them
I saw
anyway.
that.
I left the room so that they could speak freely, and then he met with the central office staff. He also met with, then did just kind of a, hi, I'm here during lunch here, come and see me. We told people if you didn't have time in one building and he was in another building, be sure to get in there. So he did lunch here, he did a lunch wave there, he did after school at West Street, and then came back here for the public to come in, and I don't think he had a very good turnout, even
No,
though,
not much.
again, I put it out on the airwaves several times. Here's a chance for your voice to be heard, so.
Okay.
So our next meeting is October 14th, and we've pretty much set our agenda, and
Would Glenn have that so I can get it posted? That's all.
would Glenn have it?
The agenda?
I don't know. He should.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
Yeah, and
I'll check with
actually,
Glenn.
that's just to review the questions.
Okay. But still, it needs to be a posted meeting, so.
Right, and I think Marie was, because she's the secretary.
Okay.
She
Okay.
was supposed to get that information
Right.
to you.
The applications are being taken presently?
Yeah,
Yes.
and as of the first meeting, it was only 2 had come in, and he
Yeah,
said that
okay.
does,
That's-
usually,
And again, just,
You don't start
when are
to
we
see
taking
them
them till?
what's that?
When are we taking applications till?
October
16th, I believe, is when it closes. And there's actually the first news item on our website is a link to the MASC site, so that if a candidate
Yeah.
came to our website, they could click and get there.
So going back to the survey,
Mm-hmm.
I don't know how we can put some more emphasis on it,
Mm-hmm.
but going back to the strategic plan and one of the areas of focus being leadership,
Mm-hmm.
It came over and over again that we are putting a plan together,
Mm-hmm.
we are trying to determine a new direction, and leadership becomes incredibly important to make sure that we are going and moving in that right direction. So hearing from everyone will be very important for us. So how do we articulate that and just put it in different forums, channels, so that folks can hear that their voice actually
Yeah.
can be heard that way, and we would like to have
Yeah.
their feedback as we are continuing this process, which already started,
Right.
and it will help the search committee tremendously as well.
I can certainly send an announcement to GCAM and ask them to put something up on their station bulletin board, with the link to the survey. I'll put it back out through Connected. I'll put it back out on my blog again on
be
Friday,
great.
and just see what comes.
Yeah. And I guess what I'm trying to say that aside from the fact that there is an open survey, if we can put some appeal in there
Yep.
that says, please go and do
Right.
it because of this,
Yeah.
that might be helpful. I don't know how
Right.
much we can squeeze in a slide, but Tim always works wonders. So cool. Anything
work.
else on that one? Is that it?
The other thing
Ian?
too is I
yeah.
can.
Okay.
Yeah, that was.
It
Thank
would
you.
probably be too late for the Sentinel, but I'll see if I can. I actually got an email from Jim Russell today wanting to know who was on the search committee, and of course that's public record, so I did send him the list. So I could send him the link and say, if you are writing a story about this, would you please put
Put
this
that in
link in the
there.
paper and
Yes,
say,
yes.
or tell them how to
That would
get
be
to it
good.
from our website, so that if they go to our website, they can click on the link to the survey.
Yeah.
So
I think they usually ask for end of day Monday or something for.
the Sentinel,
Yeah,
so it'd be too
Sentinel.
late for them for this week, but I could at
Yeah.
least.
I mean, you never know if they don't have enough stories
They might
Yeah.
be
for
able to
whatever
put it in.
reason. They
Yeah.
might be able to. Put it.
So I'll send it out to Amy Henderson, and then I'll also send it off to Eric Goldscheider as well. I did give them a press release earlier on it, but I'll do it again.
Cool. Thank you, Deanne. So we have a list of our correspondence that was in our package, and I don't think we have anything else
We
for
don't.
the evening.
There were no budget updates today, huh?
No, Archie was not able to. He had another commitment, so he'll be here on the 19th to do the budget report. He's working with Chris Martin to do the final closeout of the year, and making sure that we're reconciled with the town.
Do you know when that might happen? The closeout.
I think it's imminent. I think
Okay.
they were doing some last minute. He and Nancy were doing some last minute things today, and he sent off an email to Chris about reclassifications that were done here but didn't necessarily get posted on the town side. So just making sure that everybody was getting the same thing. So because obviously Chris is anxious to close out his books, as are we, for
Right.
FY15.
Right, and that's been a challenge and a gap year
Right.
after year. It would be
Right.
great if we can actually set an example and start now. Cool.
Well, and I think the next task is, once we get the years closed down, is then to sit down with Archie, and I'll sit down with Chris and see if we can't come to an agreement on a chart of accounts for the new SoftWrite system, so that we're on the same system, so there it is. We're not keeping records and then having to reconcile with his. Everybody sees everything,
Right.
and that should make that a lot easier.
Cool. Okay, well, do we have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
A second.
All in favor, please say aye. Aye. Thank
At
you.
8.
It is 6:30 on Monday, October 5th. We'll call the school committee meeting to order. We have 2 sets of minutes to approve to begin with. We'll start with the minutes from September 14th, 2015. Did everybody get a chance to look at the minutes?
Yeah, I don't have them in front of me, but I know I looked at them. You have those there?
September 14th. So I will ask for a motion if.
Or I have to make sure I was there. Yeah. Yeah. I'll make a motion to approve the minutes of September 14th, 2015.
Great. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any questions, comments? I actually apologize. I have to. Is this the one where we had the after-school program? And no, that's the.
Yes.
It is. Yes, it is. Okay. Any comments? I had a few comments / questions on a few things.
Okay.
The after-school program. I don't know whether it comes across this way, but we decided, I think, to go with after-school programs, but wanted to determine whether outsourcing or
Right.
doing it internally was the better way to do it. So we were going to get some more information, and that's what you're doing tonight anyway.
Yeah.
Okay. And the recycling program, there's a note there that indicates that there are some budget impacts, potential budget impacts, and that was part of the conversation. But also, remember that we would evaluate the cost to the district, and also there were potentially some savings to the district as well. So
Right.
we're not sure really that the budget impact was net positive. It could be
Right.
a wash. It could be something
Yeah,
else.
after they did the walkthrough.
Yes, after
Yes.
the walkthrough, which I don't know if they did or not. But
I have not heard
Okay.
back from them.
All right.
just wanted to make sure that, that if somebody goes back and reads them, we were not really saying one way or another. There was a
Right.
positive or negative impact to the budget. That's all I had on that one.
Okay.
That's it. Just a
So
couple
did
of
you want
comments.
any edits? Or
No, if it's clear that this is the intent of the minutes, I'm good.
okay.
Okay. So, all in favor to approve the minutes from September 14th, please say aye.
All right.
Thank you. September 20th, 2015, which was a Sunday, we had visitors from NEASC, and as part of that, we had the school committee here, and thank you very much for actually, I didn't even realize that you were taking notes. Thank you for doing that. So
My
we had-
job. It's
Pardon
in
me?
my job description.
Unfortunately. So we have minutes from September 20th, 2015. Did everybody get a chance to look at those? And if so, can we have a motion?
I'll make a motion
wasn't
to
there.
approve the minutes from September
20th.
20th.
Is there a second? Thank you. Is there any comments, questions, edits? Okay, so all in favor to approve the minutes from September 20th, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any abstention?
I'll abstain.
Okay.
Thank you. Next on the agenda, we have awards and presentations.
Right. Tonight we have some good news to share with you, and you have on your tables in front of you a report from Mass Insight, which is a group that we have partnered with through a grant to be able to increase the numbers of students participating in advanced placement courses, and hopefully also as well to increase the numbers of students who meet with qualifying scores. And the good news is on pages 6 and 7 of this handout in terms of the incredible growth that has happened with AP scores, and Mr. Cavallo and some of the folks who are taking classes, as well as one of the teachers is here. But we've had 100 student enrollments for this year, which is the most ever. And you can see some highlights around qualifying scores. In order to get college credit, you have to score 3 or higher on an AP exam. So you can see some of the qualifying scores. There's a lot more other details in the report that you can look at later, but these really are the 2 highlights, and it's just incredibly good news about what is happening here with advanced placement courses for kids. So, Mr. Cavallo, I'll turn the floor over to you.
Absolutely. So I'd first like to start off by thanking Ms. Lewison, who is our math team leader, as well as last year instructed students in AP Stats as well as AP Calculus, for being here this evening, and also for the 3 students, Hope Shaw, who you can see she had a game this evening and was able to make it for the meeting, as well as Delaney Pluta and Teresa Yevernetsky. And I just want to share a little bit about the 3 of them, because they're just remarkable students, with regards to when we went forward with this program. It was the idea to really try to, as Dr. Hull said, not only increase the number of students who can take AP courses, because what we've basically done was remove all the barriers and basically allow anyone in our school to take AP courses if indeed they wanted to pursue it. But in this particular case, and I want to make sure I'm correct here, Delaney and Teresa, they're taking this year AP Biology, AP Calculus, AP Government, and AP English. And it's just phenomenal, in terms of, you can imagine, what they're doing with regards to, I know AP Biology, the requirement after school, because we don't have a lab. We don't have lab time built in right now in the schedule, so Mrs. O'Galley is doing a lot of the instructing after school. And then with the math, I know Ms. Lewis, and the teachers here, has students after school quite often, right?
Not Fridays. That's my rule, not Fridays.
Her classroom is just inundated with students, for extra help and making sure that they're ready for the test. So this is just a sampling, with regards to the 3 girls here, but we've been able to, as you see through some of that data, really increase qualifying scores and open up, these courses to our entire student body, to the point where, if you can believe this, it's just a phenomenal number, that right now we have 60 juniors enrolled in AP English, and we only have about 73 students in the class. So 60 of the 73 students are taking AP English. Now you might say to yourself, how can that be the case? But as you'll see in your MCAS report, our 10th grade class last year, our current 11th grade class, is just a phenomenal group of students, and we had close to 60% of the kids score advanced on the 10th grade MCAS. Many of those students who were taught by Ms. Blackburn last year, Ms. Blackburn had the entire 10th grade class, is now teaching the AP language class as juniors. So it's really getting them, ready to see what college work is really going to be like. So it's great to see, a large number of our juniors taking AP classes. So, as Dr. Houle did say, in the last couple of years, we've expanded AP offerings, especially in the areas through our grant, English, science, and math, and also have recently instituted an AP government class that Mr. Dorman teaches. Though it's not part of the grant, we are looking to increase AP opportunities throughout our discipline, with hopefully more to come in the years ahead. So I don't know, and again, I want to thank Ms. Lewison and our AP teachers, because they have taken quite a bit of professional development throughout the summer. As they'll tell you, the best professional development they have received is through the College Board. Is that correct? And
yes.
The College Board really is content specific. It gets them ready to, teach, calculus in the higher, classes in those specific areas. As well as next week, you're going to a 2-day workshop. All our AP teachers are going to a 2-day workshop in Marlboro?
Marlboro, yeah.
In Marlboro. And there, once again, they'll be able to collaborate with colleagues throughout the state and get some high-quality PD from instructors that teach and score those exams.
Best PD I've ever had.
Yes.
Well, who are the AP teachers?
So in English, it's Miss Blackburn, who teaches 11th grade AP English, and 12th grade it's Miss Mason, who teaches 12th grade AP English. Government, it's Mr. Dorman. History is Mr. Racine. Miss Lewison does both calculus and statistics, and Mrs. O'Galley does AP Biology. I think that's it.
That's it.
Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So it's exciting for the kids, because they really do get, I think top-notch, these top-notch courses, and basically our teachers are well-trained to teach it. And you see from the bar graph there that our scores are increasing, and I would think that even next year we'll see that even to a higher number based on our enrollment of kids.
I have a few questions.
Sure.
So I'm trying to decipher the charts on page 5 and 6.
Mm-hmm.
So does it mean that in 2015, for instance, since 2016 is not on both, 2015 there were 82 students who enrolled in all these classes?
Correct. That's correct.
So what is the 33 here?
So 33 means, as Dr. Houle alluded to, was the qualifying scores. The College Board looks at a 3 or above as qualifying scores. So of the 82 students that enrolled in AP courses, we had 33 students
Got 3 or better.
3 or
got
better.
3 or better. And we had a kickoff a few weeks back, and we had many students who scored 2s.
Mm-hmm.
And though you don't get qualifying credit for a 2, it's almost there. And the fact that these students with the entire year, getting exposed to college-like work, that the 2 is nothing to, frown upon. What we're hoping is that those 2s, over the years will turn into 3s, those 3s will turn into 4s, and those numbers will see, continual gains in that area.
Yeah.
You want to add anything, Ms. Lewison, that maybe I missed?
These ladies, the math, science, and English, 3 Saturdays throughout the year for math, and 3 different Saturdays throughout the year for science, and 3 different Saturdays for English. They get together with area schools, which is fun. You were there last year. I mean, maybe fun is not the word. I had a great time. It was nice to just see how our students interact outside of the Granby hallway, so it was nice. And that'll be coming up.
Good learning experience. I hoped.
That's great.
So they do AP on Saturdays, school committee meetings on Mondays.
Yeah.
They have a full
We're going to send
schedule.
you the text, so it's
Great.
And also, just not that we're talking about, I know we're talking specifically about AP, but Hope is also taking a VHS course, American Sign Language, because Hope is looking to go into the nursing field. And she is in the library here, what block? F block? E block, doing her American Sign Language course via online. And Delaney is also taking a VHS course. So Delaney has, 4 AP courses, and you're taking, don't tell me, is it genes and disease?
No, animal behavior and zoology.
Animal behavior and zoology. Same thing.
Yeah.
We have quite a
That
few of
sounds
them that are
better,
doing it. So, she's able to sort of supplement her curriculum, her course of study here by obviously getting those 4 AP courses and then having some time in the library to do some independent work through her VHS offering.
Cool.
Yeah. And you're not doing, Teresa, a VHS course,
No,
right?
it didn't fit into my schedule.
Didn't fit into your schedule. So, really, I like to believe there's a lot of good stuff happening at the junior senior high school. It's a result of obviously our student body as well as our teachers who are just giving tremendously of their time.
Oh, of those 82, do you know how many took the test at the end of the year last year?
Percentage.
Percentage-wise. Or numbers, doesn't matter.
So, and that's a good question, Emery, because in the past, there was this expectation, which I'm changing for this school year, and I know school committee member Mike Quesnell had always questioned this at these meetings, that our 12th grade English class, there was sort of this misconception out there that students didn't have to or couldn't take the exam again, that we've put something in place this year where all our students taking the course need to take the exam. So we look at the exam as being a capstone for the course, being part of the course, not to water it down, but the expectation is that all our students who are taking the AP course will take the AP exam. That number might be a little skewed in terms of, I think we had about 17 students in our AP English, senior AP English class last year, and of the 17, I think 13 of them did not take it. But we had all the students sign a contract in return stating that by taking the course, they will take the exam in the spring.
Okay. Good. We had also talked about, it costs money to take the test. Is there anything to mitigate if these students come and say that they
Sure.
cannot?
So part of the grant, there is a subsidy. I think it's $25. Is that right? $25 that the
I don't
grant
know
will
for
pay
sure.
for the exam. And then if you're free and reduced, we had some students that paid $1 for the exam last year because there's a sliding scale that reduces the cost of the exam. So, if price was ever a factor, we would, see what we could do to help out the situation.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Thank you. Congratulations.
Well, thank you
you.
to the girls and to Ms. Lewis and the
Congratulations, girls.
teachers.
Right.
They're really just incredible people, and obviously are carrying tremendous workload.
I always knew they would do well.
Yeah, so,
Thank you.
Yeah, you too, probably. He included you. All right.
so I know that they're ready to take off. I appreciate
You
it.
don't want to stay for the 55 slides of MCAS data?
Really, I do love data, but I like
Not that
more.
much, huh? Okay.
Thank you again.
Thank you,
Thank
ladies.
you very much. Okay. Next, as always, we have our visitors' comments section. But I don't see any visitors again tonight, so I'll make another plea. This section really is for those folks who, if they are watching, they don't have to watch it on TV. They can be here, and if they have any questions, if they have any concerns, anything to say, this is the segment for them. So, and you don't have to stay for the whole meeting either. If you show up and you have something to say, at least it would be shared with the school committee directly. So don't be shy if you would like to show up. We enjoy and much appreciate comments from our visitors. But unfortunately today we have none, so we'll move on to the next topic, which is our student representatives report. Annabelle.
I have a few things to share tonight. First up, the student council met on last Wednesday, and we decided that we've been planning the cotillion, and it is going to be December 5th at the Castle of Knights. And also, I think the construction's all done on like the girls' bathroom over by the cafeteria, and it looks really good. I mean, I've talked to some people, and we all agree that they're really nice. We're happy because the stalls, they got moved from like a shorter distance to a higher,
More privacy?
Yeah, because some
That's
of the
good.
girls could actually look out at their heads would just be over. It was bad. Also, the next Peer Advisory Council meeting is going to be on the 23rd of October. And from last meeting, the question about the drama club, the play is called Death by Dessert, and the shows are going to be Friday, November 13th at 7 p.m., and it's going to be like a dinner show. And then that Saturday, the 14th, at 2, it's just going to be the show. And then also...
And dessert, too, I think. I got the email. It said about dessert, too, on the afternoon one. I must have an updated edition or something.
You probably do.
I'm surprised you missed the dessert part.
No,
I don't know.
I don't know if I should be offended right now.
I would be if I were you, but just saying.
And then also 7 is going to be that dinner show on the 14th. And then the next day, at the 15th at 2, and it's just going to be that show. Also, the Special Olympics are going to be Friday, October 16th.
Oh, it's coming up.
How many total shows? The drama club?
4.
4. Okay, thank you. Anything else?
Nope, that's it.
Which Castle of Knights?
Chickabee, right?
It's actually
big
the
one?
On Granby Road. It's not the one on the Rotary. It's the one that across from the Elks Club as you
Oh,
go to
Chickabee.
the center, as you're approaching the center of Chickabee, going down there. We had it actually 2 years ago there. Last year we had it at the warehouse, and we were sort of laughing about that today. Annabelle and I were because it was. If you've been to the warehouse, the parking is a little questionable,
Yeah.
and security is as well. And for ninth graders that we have, and it was pouring out that evening. I don't know if you remember. It was just it was like a monsoon out there. It was just terrible. That for safety and security, having it at the Castle of Knights in Chickabee, where we had it 2 years ago, was just it's just a much better venue to have something as opposed to the warehouse where it was on the 3rd or 4th floor. Kids are using the elevator, can get lost. It was just.
Yeah, the bathroom is the floor below,
Yeah.
so it was like really crazy, like go up and down the stairs. And kids got off on the wrong floors, and it was just kind of.
Yeah, it's one thing with a prom where you're dealing specifically with 11th, 12th graders. Here we open it up 9 through 12. The kids as young as 13 years old, they want to, for supervision reasons, kind of reel that in.
Thank you. Thank you, Annabelle. And if you have to leave, if your ride is here, feel free to leave anytime. Our next section is reports and recommendations of the superintendent. We'll start with the MCAS. your
MCAS
favorite.
data. You ready?
Yes.
I'm always in the spotlight. Last place I want to be.
Well, the state released the data a little over a week ago, and
Do you mind if I ask a quick question?
Sure.
So we had the last couple of years this MCAS Park and all that stuff. Do they have reports like this for those schools that chose to take Park, or it's not really?
The park data are not coming out for another couple of weeks,
Okay.
but there will be a public, unveiling of those as well. And because the park data are not coming out for another couple of weeks, the accountability status levels that they do for school districts have been delayed till mid-November. So we won't know what our accountability status level is until then, because they've got to get all the park data out before they make those determinations. So that's something that's a little bit different. Usually when we send home the MCAS test reports, which just arrived late last week, so high school and East Middle are preparing to send them out. Usually we know what the accountability data status is, and we usually send a letter. With that letter, obviously, will be delayed because we don't know what that is at this current time. So,
Thank you.
Nope. I hope if I turned this on. Okay. So the purpose of this particular presentation is to kind of give you an overview of a very complex system of assessments, the results, and what their meaning is for our school in a way that hopefully helps to make some sense out of all of this. To assist in your understanding, plus as well the public's understanding of these data, which will be part of upcoming communications and conversations. One caveat that I will say to you that sometimes for good or for not good, because the population or the N size of students in Granby is so small, sometimes results can be impacted greatly by just a very small number of students, where you're talking about tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands of students in the Commonwealth, levels. And when you look at state comparisons, obviously there's a greater number of students that would cause a shift one way or the other in the data. So I just wanted to kind of put that out there for a little bit. I would say that as I looked through the data, there are no surprises. When I went through and did my self-assessment and we talked about my goals, I told you that based on what I had seen, that I thought we had a curriculum problem. This just confirms that issue for me. But I think success-wise, when we look at, particularly when I pulled apart the data to do students by cohort, as we did the same students, or mostly the same students going from grade level to grade level, the cumulative effects of an education in Granby Public Schools is very positive. Students come a long way. There are some hiccups along the road, and we'll talk about those. And I think that the overall cumulative effects, as Mr. Cavallo said earlier, at grade 10 really confirm the fact that our students leave here really well prepared for college and career from a knowledge and skills perspective. So I think those are our successes. Challenges, one word, curriculum. Two issues. I think one is the implementation of new standards in the classroom by grade level, and then the articulation of those standards across grade levels. What I noticed as a pattern in every content area that I looked at, that as students went from one building to the next, there was a dip, which says to me that there's not good cross-conversation going on between buildings. We saw it third graders coming to fourth, we saw it in sixth graders coming to seven, and that was across the board. So it really is incumbent upon us as a senior leadership team to make sure that we are ensuring that there's a way for those conversations to happen, so that teachers are really talking about what is it that I'm doing in sixth grade, what's happening in seventh grade, what's happening in third grade, what's happening in fourth grade, so that we get a flavor for that. Matter of fact, we were having a conversation this morning at the table with senior leadership team where, something was shared about things that are going on in sixth grade that, was good information for Mr. Cavallo to have. And, so how do we facilitate those conversations between teachers as well, so that we're making sure that it's not just in a silo, I'm doing my own grade level, but I'm aware of what comes before me, and I'm aware of where I need to head for what comes after.
Didn't we address this at a school committee meeting last year?
Yeah, that's why I brought it up last time. That's surprising yet disappointing to me, because there were curriculum committees that were doing all that. There were teams that were
They made a
across the
PowerPoint
board,
presentation.
and all that. So I don't know what happened.
I'm not sure that it's filtered past the particular curriculum committee. I think that's the the problem. I would say that the people who were on the committee may have all been of a mind, but they were all representatives of every grade level. It wasn't all the teachers at the grade level. So how do we engage all of the teachers in the
So the
conversation?
communication flow.
Right. So November 3rd, that work will begin, where all of the teachers, or as many of the teachers in certain content areas, obviously the elementary people will have to split themselves up. But how do we better facilitate those cross conversations so that we don't have the breakdowns between buildings? So what I'm going to do is go through each content area one at a time. I'm going to give you some comparisons to how we did this year versus the state. We'll take a look at some historical patterns, which are the patterns that determine our accountability status. They are not the same group of students. They are a different group every year. So I also went into the data and pulled apart the cohorts so you could see, for the most part, the same group of students moving through. And it's those three lenses that sort of help inform some of the theories that I had going into this and help to substantiate them. So third grade is the first year in which children take the MCAS. And so this is the first kind of report that we see with them in terms of their comparison to the state. As you can see, not quite as good in the advanced part, but we are on par if you sort of take this and kind of slice it right down the middle, advanced proficient as one clump of data. We're on par with the state, a little less advanced, more proficient. Same thing, we're pretty on par with the state in terms of needs improvement and warning, but again, a little more at the warning level and a little less at the needs improvement level. So, you know, we're in the ballpark. Is there some work to be done? Absolutely. The third graders are the first group to take the test, so I don't have a cohort comparison because there was nobody before them. They didn't take it prior to the third grade, but this is sort of the historical view. And so these represent, each one of these years represents a different group of children. So these are not the same kids that are taking the test from year to year, but it is a different group of children. So some of the variance is due to the group. And the makeup of the group, how many special education students might be in the group, some of those kinds of things. And one of the things that I took a look at was looking at the data in the context of having had a new curriculum sort of come into play in between these 2 years. And there's a phenomenon known as the implementation dip, that sometimes when you implement something new for a year or so, there's a dip while teachers are learning the curriculum, and then it comes back up again. So I've noticed that in several places between 2014 and 2015 in both English language arts and mathematics, that there does seem to be a little bit of an implementation dip that's gone on here.
Plus,
So-
you had changes in staff at grade 3 too, I think. Different staff people, and that's
Right.
There's got to be a learning curve there too for
Absolutely.
people coming into first year teaching third grade or something.
Exactly. Yep. So all
Not
of
an
those
excuse,
things,
but a factor, yeah.
right, and all of those things, you know, certainly have an impact. And yet, if you were to look at the numbers of children that these bars represent, particularly at the warning failing level or the advanced level, it's very few kids. So again, it's that whole sort of, we have a small n, so those shifts can happen pretty easily with just a couple of students. Moving on to fourth grade, again, we are pretty much in the ballpark when you slice this down the center. But again, as you'll see, some of the trends are not as many kids at advanced, more kids at proficient. How do we move more kids into the advanced level is the question. Here we have a few more kids that needs improvement, but less kids at warning failing, which is, you know, again, a good thing. And if you see the numbers, we have 7 kids who are at warning failing, 3 kids at advanced. So again, because our numbers are small, the outer extremes sometimes get impacted by that. So, you know, again, this also speaks a little bit to some of the information about the gap in communication that may be going on between the two buildings. When you take a look at fourth grade English language arts, again, year to year, different kids each year. you'll notice that there is a lessening of the number of students at the advanced level, a little more at the warning failing level. Again, I think this bespeaks, again, a little bit of that implementation dip in the new curriculum that came out from 2014 to 2015. This is the first year that we're actually able to take a look at a cohort of students, know how they did 1 year in 3rd grade, know how they did 1 year in 4th grade. And as you can see, we made some gains moving kids from proficient to advanced, but we lost a little bit in needs improvement and warning failing. And these would be, by and large, the same students. There might have been some new students come in or some students who have left, but the majority of the kids would have been kids that were with us through that whole period of time. So, again, that sort of bespeaks this, and it's a pattern that continues, this sort of articulation pattern, is how is what's happening here being articulated with what's happening here, and how do we keep kids moving forward instead of losing a little ground.
Do we also track whether and how the students are changing categories? So if I'm, for instance, proficient 1 year and next year I'm warning, or are they the same students who are actually in the warning failing category? Do our actions depend on that type of analysis as well, or is it simply a cohort comparison and then we go with that?
The schools actually do student analyses as well as some item analysis on the test, and that's we can actually dip in and take a look at released questions and find out how our kids did on certain types of questions, and are there certain things that those questions tell us about what we need to do better in terms of instructing students. So all of that kind of analysis has begun, but needs to continue certainly as we take a look at those students and how we support kids. So it's usually sort of the kids who are on the cusp. If you're on the cusp between needs improvement and warning, sometimes it's also a variance in the test. The 4th grade test tends to be a little higher above grade level than the 3rd grade test is. So again, it's sometimes the variance in the test itself. All of these things come in, so it's our job to kind of unpack what's going on here, in terms of trying to take a look at that, those issues.
At the very least, I'm assuming we're shooting for proficient.
Mm-hmm.
And it looks like year over year, when we do the cohort comparison, we're more or less the same. In fact, the
we had 50%
total went up a little bit.
Right, 50%, 53% proficient when they were 3rd graders, and 50% proficient as 4th graders.
If we do the needs improvement plus warning failing, was 43% last year for the same group of students, and then it's 45% this year.
Yeah, so I mean that's not statistically significant, but again, a lot of it is because of the small number of students, and one child who might be sort of teetering between needs improvement and warning failing, 1 or 2 kids who has a little less success the following year, that's going to influence those numbers certainly. Moving on to 5th grade, at this point, and this is where I began to get the feeling that it was an articulation issue, because 4th grade, 5th grade, and 6th grade live together at East Meadow School. You're now looking at 5th grade ELA results, and you're beginning to see more kids going into advanced and proficient, and less kids at needs improvement and warning than the state. So they're all in the same building together. Those teachers have an opportunity to interact more regularly together. Hopefully we can change that by virtue of having the same schedule between the 2 buildings. That's been part of what's impeded all of this, is the fact that they've been on 2 separate schedules. So it's been difficult for teachers to get together. But I would say certainly when you look at what happens within East Meadow School, it really gives an educational reason for the direction that we're headed in with trying to do an ad reno to East Meadow and bringing everybody under one roof. Because you'll see some of these improvement trends happen throughout the life of East Meadow School. So it's very clear that people are talking to each other, and that's up across the board in pretty much all content areas. So we've noticed that. I've noticed that trend.
So going back to that communication issue that you mentioned,
is
it fair to say that we need to have the same clear communication between what is now West Street and
East Meadow.
Yeah.
And we don't necessarily have that.
Right.
In my mind, playing with statistics and stuff, I can understand and appreciate that, and it sounds like a great factor. But I'm wondering whether it is the factor or the only factor.
I would say it's not the only factor, but I think it's a key contributor. When you have similar trends across content areas, every teacher has strengths in terms of their content knowledge, particularly at the elementary level, and areas in which they are not as strong. And I think that you find that at the elementary level, when these trends keep repeating themselves, if it's an instructional problem, one content area will be up and another content area will be down, and it's not. These trends persist no matter where I looked. So that's what said to me, it's not necessarily a classroom instruction issue. And I've been in classrooms and teachers and kids are working very hard. It bespeaks to me that higher issue of how are we implementing the curriculum and how are we articulating that curriculum grade level to grade level. This is, again, the year to year. These are not the same students every year, but again, you can see that teachers at the 5th grade level, have really worked hard to try and increase. They had a very strong year in 2012, kind of dropped off in 2013, 2014 as they're getting their sea legs under the English language arts curriculum, and they've really worked hard to try and improve those results. And when we look at the kids as a cohort, again, you can see some great growth here amongst the kids, which shows that, they really are, the longer they're with us in Granby, the better they do. So the cumulative impact certainly is strong here in English language arts. We only have 3% of the students at warning and failing versus 8% the year prior. Only 19 at needs improvement versus 28. 53 versus 51 in proficient, and 25% of the students at advanced versus 13% the prior year. So, and versus 11% the year before. So the trend is upward for those 3 years, which is good to see. 6th grade, again, same pattern that we're seeing is that the more confident kids get as readers, and also in their last year at East Meadow School, again, outpacing the state a little bit in the advanced category, certainly in proficient, less kids at needs improvement and warning than the state, which is exactly what we want to be able to see. We only have 2% of the kids at needs improvement versus the state's 10%. So again, this is a good trend compared to the statewide numbers. Year to year, again, not the same group of kids every year. So even though there's a sort of a downtick in the number of advanced students, the proficient band is wider. There are less students at the needs improvement and warning levels, so we're moving kids up. We did lose a little bit of ground in the advanced level, but again, these kids who are in these lower levels are starting to move their way into being proficient, which is a good thing to see. And when we look at the cohort comparison, we can see some great growth amongst the same group of students across 4 years worth of data. When you look at where they were in 3rd grade and in 4th grade, and you can just continue to see that improvement go forth in grade 6.
Is there a state level or regional? I'm not sure, you guys actually did a presentation before as well, and I don't remember the details. Is there a cohort level comparison?
Yes, there is. There's a tool that the state has put out called the DART tool, which is a comparison of 10 districts that are similar in demographics. So we can, again, I haven't really delved into the DART tool because that still is not populated for 2015. But what little I've looked at it, we're right about in the middle of where other districts are who are like us in demographic characteristics.
And another thing that pops, starting with 3rd grade, I see that it's about 47% needs improvement, warning, then 50, then it starts coming down dramatically. So we tend to look at what may be a root cause for what's not working. Do we also look at what was working?
Yes, and that will be a large part of where we are in terms of taking a look at how is the curriculum being implemented? And again, to me, what speaks here is the fact that these 3 years are years when the children are in the same building, teachers have access to one another, teachers have the ability to talk with one another about what's going on. This year is a year where there's 2 different buildings, and so that communication does not take place as well as we would like it to be, and we understand that that's a need that we need to address, and we will start with the full day in November doing that.
One thing that you touched on before is that that's the first time third graders take the test.
Mm-hmm.
There's that curve. And in all my years, I remember that the third grade test was probably harder for them.
Yeah.
And there was a big difference between the third and fourth grade test. So
Yep.
I think that played into it too.
Yeah.
So it's not necessarily the curriculum as much as the
Yeah.
difficulty of the test.
In some respects, the curriculum, elementary curriculum director for Frontier Regional actually did an analysis of some test items in Massachusetts, and then she pulled up Kentucky, found the reading level on one of the reading passages in third grade on an MCAS released item was an 8th grade passage.
Right.
That had to do with something that kids would not necessarily resonate to, where the Kentucky passage was right on grade level, and it was about the American flag, and third graders are into all of that. So again, a lot of it's the test design as well. And there have been some calibration issues with the MCAS tests versus the curriculum standards that are out there. And regardless of what the State Board of Ed is supposed to make a decision about what they're going to do post MCAS in November, and whether they go with Park or they decide on something else, it's time for this test to have an overhaul. There's a huge problem from the day that test was made in 7th grade math. For some reason, it is not aligned well with the state frameworks. It never has been.
This one, okay.
Yep. And so you will see a dip in 7th grade math that is just across the state. It's categoric. Same thing in science. So there's something where the test is not well aligned with what the standards are for teaching. So when you see something, a big dip like that, and it's not just us, but it's the entire state, then there's something wrong with the test. And that's been since forever.
Do they have any analysis that look into, for instance, we talked about AP before. Do we look at the trends on MCAS and the other success factors, whether it's grades or AP grades, whatever that might be, to see whether or not? And I'm asking this because I think earlier you mentioned something like our students are well positioned to succeed as they go on to college, and Is there really a correlation that if you do well in MCAS, you're going it at least gives you some positive support in your future endeavors, or is it not proven?
I think if you look at certain tests together, for example, at the in West Street School, they give the Dibbles literacy test, as well as the benchmark assessment system to the kids. And the Dibbles has been proving scientifically to be a pretty good indicator of student success at MCAS. How those data are really used to help inform the pre-MCAS teachers in terms of how kids are doing and where they are at, I don't really know the answer to, so those are some things that I'm trying to find out as I wade through this myself. Again, the 7th grade test, as you noticed, statewide, there's a dip in advanced. Ours is a little bit lower than the state's, but there's a dip over 6th grade. Proficient, we're a little bit higher than the state. Got more kids that needs improvement, but less kids at warning and failing, so we're trying to move that progression forward. But you can see there's a huge statewide dip in advanced levels at the 7th grade level. So again, it bespeaks that the test is not necessarily matching the standards as well as it could or should. When we look at year to year, 7th grade, some of the gains that were made at East Meadow School have been lost. To me, as a curriculum specialist, this again is highly indicative of a lack of communication between the two buildings. And so that's something we intend to fix throughout the year this year with our full and half days of professional development. when we look at the kids as a cohort, again, there's still some loss. And if you look at what goes on is that, you've got some improvement in 4th grade after the 3rd grade test. You see that improvement, those gains continue through 6th grade, and then there's a drop off in 7th grade again, even with the same kids being looked at. So again, that tells me that, we need to be spending more time trying to figure out how we get people to talk between buildings. 8th grade, we begin to see some of those declines come back. Again, not quite where we want to be. The state, you can see, has popped up quite a bit in their advanced levels from 7th grade. Not so much for us. But again, we're outpacing them in proficient. It's who's on the cusp of proficient and how do we get them to advanced is the question. And then continuing to move needs improvement and warning and failing students across, because we want to see that sort of leftward movement for improvement. Again, looking at year to year, again, not the same group of kids across the board, but again, this tells you some things. Again, they've lost a little bit of ground, but if we go to the cohort, they've actually gained when you're looking at the same students. They've actually made some gains back, more kids at the advanced level, way more kids at the proficient level, and a few less down here. So we are beginning to see some picking back up of that 8th grade group as they go through. 10th grade. Here's where Mr. Cavallo can smile. We have no kids oops, wrong thing. Oops, let me go back, sorry. Hit the wrong button. We have no kids at the warning failing level. So, we've got a few at needs improvement, but high numbers of proficient and way outpace the state in advanced. And again, I think as John said earlier, this really speaks to the fact that we had so many kids taking AP English courses that they were able to achieve at this level. So, kudos.
So is it to understand, this actually indicates that those students would be the type of students who would like to take AP classes? Because they hadn't taken anything in AP at the time they took the MCAS, right?
So if one thing is that we actually have one student in the class scored needs improvement, and that one student scored 238. He was 2 points shy of proficient, which would have made all our students. And I was actually thinking of, it is what it is. And,
Can't get any closer than that.
Can't get any closer than that.
Right.
But to answer Emery's question, our AP 11th grade English teacher taught all the 10th grade students last year. So her course load last year is that she had 2 AP classes, which is for juniors, and she had 3 10th grade classes, which were all our sophomores. So my belief, and this is from the AP, from the College Board, is that when these teachers go through the training to get, to become College Board or AP instructors, it also helps in the other classes that they teach, because they bring that content, they bring that enrichment to a 9th grade class, in Jen's particular case, to all her sophomores, who I really believe is what we see here as a result of what she was able to do to that 10th grade class. And now she has those same kids in 11th grade as the AP English teacher.
Right.
So
Makes sense,
so I think it's part and parcel of the teacher, but I also think now we're beginning to see some excitement amongst the kids for AP, so they know in order to be in an AP class that they have to do well as 9th and 10th graders. So it's kind of, they're sort of pushing themselves to get ready for that advanced level. So I do think we see, even though they haven't taken the classes at this point, we're beginning to see their sights set in that direction, which is really a great thing to see.
Just going back to my earlier point, looks like at least one factor there was the fact that the same teacher was teaching last year. So, I mean, those are our learnings, I'm assuming, and we cannot always have the same teacher teach both years. But is there a way to leverage that approach? If indeed it is helping students.
Again, those conversations are being had interdepartmentally, so that that teacher can say, for those of you who have sophomores who are if I don't have them, here are some of the things if they want to be in an AP class that they need to have. So again, having those conversations with each other and being able to really take a look at that is huge. And again, these are not the same students year to year here, but again, we're taking a look at 2014 and 2015. Again, as the excitement builds for AP courses and having the teacher teach the 10th graders who are also going to be potentially in the advanced placement at junior level, again, you see that influence on what's going on in English language arts. And then as a cohort, huge gains. You know, when you look at them as 8th graders in 2013, which was the last time they were tested, going to 2015, huge gains. Of course, there's 2 years of instruction in there as well that helps make those gains happen, and that's oftentimes why you see huge jumps from 8th grade to 10th grade, because there's 2 years rather than 1 year of instruction to be able to help students improve. So again, this is all really good news in terms of where kids are, you know, and we're looking at, you know, as John said, one poor kid who was 2 points shy of the magic 240 number, which the state's going to eventually, the state is beginning to move towards a student growth number instead of you must hit 240 to pass. It's how far you grow, and they're beginning to look at data through those lenses. So it will be interesting to see how that impacts the next generation of testing, whatever that may be.
Is that how do the kids who take portfolio instead of a standard test, how do they roll into these numbers?
They don't.
They don't
MCAS,
know, it's
MCAS
just-
Alt is a whole different scoring. So it's only slide 25, John. Come on.
I would stick around except I have to run. I'm sorry. It's not that
He
I
said
don't
he's
want to
gonna
see the
come-
math
come
scores,
back
but,
for the-
We'll be back.
You know, our math scores are equally impressive. I would like to think.
Just kidding. So again, we'll do the same thing with math. We'll take a look at each of the grades and look at them through the 3 different lenses, and I think you'll see some similar trends. Math, not as well as the state did across the board, but again, this was relatively new in the curriculum adoption process, so this could potentially be part of the implementation dip issue. There were also some changes in staffing at 3rd grade last year that may have impacted this as well. When we look at them year to year, because obviously we can't look at a cohort, again, these are all different groups of children, so it's hard to draw a whole lot of conclusions from this, other than we know we have some curriculum work to do.
How long have we had the new math curriculum materials?
I think the textbooks have been in place for a
Gotta
couple of
be.
years.
So this must be the 3rd year,
Mm.
starting this school year.
Yeah. One of the things we're going to do on November 3rd is for English Language Arts and Math who do have curriculum documents written, we're actually going to make them sit with, or I shouldn't say make them, we're going to have them sit with the materials they use to teach and the standards, and tick off what standards are covered in the materials they have in front of them, what standards their materials may not cover, because no series covers everything. And do they bring something else to the table? The frequency of how many standards are addressed in what place, and then go back and do an item analysis in the MCAS and see if, in fact, we need to do some thinking about how we supplement what the textbook series has to offer, because I think that will be huge as well in terms of looking at all of this, to do a real full curriculum audit, because they really haven't done that. The curriculum was written, the books were bought, people are going through the books, but I don't think they've gone back to the base document to say, yep, it covers these things really well, these things not so well, and there are some things in the book that aren't even in our standards, so how do I not even deal with them?
So they never did, because we had the curriculum maps in elementary school because we only had 3 marking periods. They had everything, what was covered from September up until November, and likewise. So those were
But
never
that's what I'm.
updated? Those
That's
were
what
never?
no. That's what I'm understanding is also part of the disconnect here. Is that both in English language arts and in math, that nobody's really gone through all of the standards and gone through the materials they use to teach the standards to see how good a match that is. So we're going to do an audit.
Well, that's, again, just disappointing, because we were led to believe that was all happening on the money that was spent on substitutes, which was way over it for the teachers. across this, every grade level had a representative there.
Yep.
And then when they chose the series that there was, is because you're right, nothing's going to do it perfectly.
Right.
That matched what they needed to do. So you would think that this is done, now they're together. So this is just
These are-
disappointing to hear.
Right, well,
If that is,
I can't go back, all I can do is go
I know,
forward,
I'm just-
so that's what
I
we're
agree,
gonna do.
I'm just sitting here where we are. That's why I bring it up like this.
So when we look at the math, again, the school versus the state, a few less advanced, but a lot more proficient. So again, when you do that sort of cut down the middle, we're on par with the state here. Same thing here, a few more at warning failing, a few less at needs improvement. So again, it's how do we get kids moved over into the higher levels that we need to take a look at. Looking at them from year to year, again, this tells me the same thing it tells me in English language arts, that there's an implementation dip. And to do English language arts and math at the same time at the elementary level, I'm not surprising, because that's the bulk of the day in those classrooms, and to expect have teachers doing new curriculum in both areas at the same time, this doesn't surprise me. This would be an expected phenomenon for me. The cohort comparison, again, I would say is again, some curriculum implementation and probably some lack of articulation between the two buildings is what you're seeing going on, because this is the same group of children, by and large. 5th grade, again, not quite so many kids at the advanced level, more kids at the proficient level, more kids that needs improvement and less at warning. So again, when you do that sort of split down the middle, we're pretty much on par with the state. It's just the state's a little more advanced than we are. We look at them from year to year. Even though these aren't the same group of kids, you can see again, while there's a bigger needs improvement band, the warning failing band has dropped significantly, so some attention has been paid to children who are not as successful in the MCAS, and how do we work with them. And then when you look at them as a cohort, again, you begin to see this cumulative effect from being everybody at East Meadow. The advanced numbers have upticked a little bit, the proficient band is much wider, and the needs improvement band has lessened. The warning failing one has stayed the same, but again, we're seeing again some improvement across the board with the same group of students as they progress through the building. 6th grade, again, gains. This is again indicative of the cumulative effect of being together in the same building with teachers who were working together. We're beginning to see us outpace the state in all areas, which is good to see. We look at them from year to year. Again, these are not the same groups of children, so there is some variance in the advanced proficient levels, not so much down here. But if we look at them as a cohort, again, you see that huge growth from 4th to 5th to 6th. So again, which says, hi, we're all together under the same roof, everybody's working together. And 3rd grade, again, tends to be a little bit of an outlier, but, again, first time taking the test, some staffing changes last year that could, over the course of the years, that could have potentially had some impact as well. So, 7th grade. 7th grade this is the dip. This has been historically since the first year of the MCAS. Advanced levels plummet in 7th grade. Proficient levels plummet in 7th grade. And this is a statewide problem. This has been a statewide problem since this test was initiated, and the state has never been able to get that good match between what's going on in the classroom and what's being tested on the test for whatever reason, through several iterations. So this, again, we're right about where the state is, and this is a dip that's an expected dip. When we look at them, though, from year to year, again, not the same group of kids, but we are seeing some improvement in terms of advanced levels. A little more kids at the needs improvement level. We'd like to see that proficient band be a little bit wider. But when we look at them as a cohort, again, you can see Many of those gains that happened in 4, 5, and 6 have been lost, but that's not atypical of what's going on in the Commonwealth. That's right where the rest of the Commonwealth is. And why that has never congealed, I don't know, but that's just been an historical problem for as long as that test has been around. We look at the math for grade 8. Again, when you do the down the middle split here, we see, again, similar results from the school and the state, just less kids at the advanced level than maybe we'd like to see. And the same thing with needs improvement and warning. If you take them together, we're on par for the state. It's just that we have a few more at warning versus needs improvement, or failing at this point is what it's called. Year to year, we see some gains in terms of advanced and proficient, less at needs improvement, but we've had a little uptick in warning failing. But again, these are different groups of kids, so it could be the makeup of the class that would be a contributing factor. When we look at them as a cohort, while we haven't gained everything back that they had in 6th grade, there have been gains made from 7th into 8th. So again, the cumulative effect is beginning to show itself. When we get to 10th grade math, we are outpacing the state. Not hugely so, but enough. And particularly when you get down to that needs improvement and warning failing thing, only 3 kids who failed the 10th grade MCAS in math that will have to retake it, which is pretty good. The year-to-year numbers, again, you can see, cumulative effects being had. I think you can begin to see also the effects of having people who are now engaging in advanced placement courses beginning to bubble into those lower grades. And when we look at the cohort comparison, you can see again 7th grade in 2012, 8th grade in 2013, 2 years of instruction in there, and again eyes toward the prize in AP Math courses in 11th and 12th. You can see that there's a huge influence there. So those are great results to take a look at. Then the last area is science. We're on the home stretch. There's a lot of information to digest. Science is only given in grades 5, 8, and 10. So we'll do state comparisons. We'll do historical comparisons. We will only do cohort comparisons for grades 5 and 8 because the 10th grade test is so biology heavy. It's really hard to make a comparison between a more general science test in 8th grade. So that's really not a fair cohort comparison to make. 5th grade science, we outpace the state by quite a bit, particularly in the number of students who score proficient. Few more advanced, far less in needs improvement and warning or failing at the 5th grade level. Our year-to-year results, not quite as strong as in 2012 and 2013, but again, these are not the same students. So that's something also to take into consideration here. When we look at the 8th grade, again, you'll notice a statewide phenomenon. Only 3% across the state scoring the advanced level on the science, technology, and engineering exam at the state level. So the fact that we only have 1% is really not a huge concern because that's just a giant drop across the board. We outpace in proficient. We have a few more in needs improvement, but less in warning failing, so at least we have more kids headed in the right direction at the 8th grade level. So that's a good thing to see. When we look at the year-to-year results, again, you can see that over time we're beginning to see some more at the advanced level where you had none in 2012. The proficient is a little bit up and down, but again, not the same group of kids when you look at this 8th grade set of results. I did do a cohort comparison for 5th to 8th grade, and again, not quite as strong in 8th grade as they were in 5th grade, but again, that's a statewide phenomenon, so that's not something that I'm overly concerned about. Science is not something we have addressed as a curriculum area at this point in time anyway, so obviously that's on the radar screen to get started. here's our 10th grade results. Not as many kids at the advanced level as we would like, but as you can see, we way outpace the state in proficient. Needs improvement, far less than the state, and we have nobody who's at the warning failing rate. So no concerns there. And again, I did not do the cohort comparison because this is a heavily biology exam. But again, we're seeing, even though we'd like to see more advanced results, we are seeing a huge, uptick in the number of kids who are scoring proficient and far less at the needs improvement and none at the warning failing level. So that's also positive news. So what does all this mean? The $64,000 question. Again, no surprises. This confirms the conversation that I had with you when we were figuring out what my goals were for evaluation. There's definitely a need to do more curriculum work, either implementing what we've got or, creating curriculum where none exists right now that needs to be done both within grade levels and across grade levels in schools. And that work begins in earnest on the full day on November 3rd. We're just going to take every opportunity that we have on the calendar for release time and go at this with teachers so that we begin to get a process in place to be able to do that. Questions? Thoughts?
It's a lot to digest.
I don't think I want to look at a spreadsheet for like 3 months. In spreadsheets and graphs and grabbing numbers from one spreadsheet and going to the next. Woo! So, yeah, it is.
So you've been here less than a year, so this is not to get the whole history. But from your perspective, do you see that we are focusing too much, enough, too little with these standardized tests?
I would say that we're focused probably just about right. You have to remember this is a snapshot in time of how kids did on a particular test on a particular day in the spring.
Right.
So any number of factors could be at work in terms of how kids are doing. This is just a quick snapshot in time. Part of what we're going to be doing this year in terms of curriculum work is also taking a look at common assessments that are more formative in nature, that give teachers more frequent feedback on how the teaching and learning is going, and what can they do to help impact as they go through, because the next snapshot will be a year from now. So I think it helps inform your decisions about what you need to do. In some of the areas where, we've had an uptick in the number of kids who are at the failing level, going in and be able to do an item analysis of the released questions and find out, is there a particular type of question, and is there a particular type of question over time that kids have not done well on? Oftentimes open response questions where they give kids a writing prompt and they have to respond to that writing prompt, that tends to be a weakness for some kids. In the math, those questions are often, what is the answer to this, and explain your work. And it's not just the answer, but it's the explaining the process that the student used to get to that point that counts as part of that. So mathematical reasoning is tested. Is that an area that we need to focus more on, or is it just the fact that we don't have a strong baseline in computational skills? Our kids not mastering their basic facts, so when they get to the higher operations, they're in trouble because they don't have what we call fact fluency. They can't recall them quickly. So what are those factors? Those are questions we have yet to answer. So I think it gives us some good information, but I don't think it's where you put all of your thought and energy into it.
They don't have, 2 years ago, they were looking at the formative assessments in both math and ELA to help,
right?
Stop every 4 weeks, 5 weeks, whatever. Nothing happened with that. I was understanding they were looking at one, and I thought some were purchased.
There was a license that was purchased for a certain particular group of assessments, and for whatever the reason, we got absolutely no useful data from them. And
So do we still, are they still using it?
no, because there was no sense in spending $10,000 on something that gave us no usable data.
So we purchase it once and
Yeah.
throw that money away.
Yep. There are assessments in the math series
Yeah.
that our Title I math teacher, who also happens to be here frequently, Kristen, has actually gone in and gotten the kids into the computerized assessments and has actually put some spreadsheets together for teachers. They've been doing some assessments that are embedded within the textbook that were already there that could potentially become those common assessments to give us more data about how kids are doing. So, again, I think we're finding our way through all of this and trying to work things out. But
Yeah, I think that's the main challenge with tests like this. These are all reactive. And something happens last year, so many
Right.
months into the new year, we find out, and we may or may
Right.
not be able to do something
Right.
with it. So whatever the success factor we are able to determine for this year's juniors, who apparently had a great year taking their MCAS, and this year they're eager to take all these AP classes.
right,
Whatever happened, it may be that we're locked out and we have all the geniuses in 1 year. But I'm assuming that there is something done well, and it's one of the factors. Because at the end of the day, I agree with you. This actually informs us, at least provides us with some hints as to what is and what is not working.
right.
But when you look at the previous presentation on AP, what counts for college admission? It's nothing says that the standardized test at the state level really accounts for anything.
Right.
They don't even know what the students scored.
Right.
But if something here allows us to focus on some of these success factors, I think that's when
Right.
the results become much more valuable.
And I think a lot of it is the professional development of the teacher and who the teacher has for students, or how the teacher can share that professional development of what is the expectation in an advanced placement course. Certainly influences the teaching of other folks, but how do we make sure that even within a building those grade level to grade level conversations are being had, and then how do they happen between buildings? And hopefully with combining West Street's and East Meadow's schedules, that at least we can begin that articulation process in ways that couldn't happen before because their dismissal times were a half an hour apart. But I think it also just adds fuel from an educational perspective to the fire of needing to bring everybody under one roof and have all of the teachers and all of the kids in one place, so that on those hours of power that are in their contract or on those half days, it's not even somebody drives from one school to the other, it's everybody's there, let's get to work. There's no time wasted. So, I think that's a huge educational reason for doing this.
Historically, Granby kids have always done well in the MCAS for the most part, which is, it's never been a real issue. And we can look at this and that, but overall, they've done pretty well.
Yeah, and the overall cumulative effect is that, whatever sort of bumps in the road or dips that they experience, they recover from. Our teachers bring them back up.
The individual reports, parents have already received them.
I don't believe so. They just came in like last Friday, so I think they are being prepared to be sent home within the next day or two from the two schools. So.
Now, you said the state was making a decision in November with regards to MCAS or Park.
Yeah, or some other something.
That was going to be my next question. Is there anything in the pipeline that you're hearing about on some other something?
There is another assessment that is used in Connecticut called the Smarter Balance SBAC, and I can't remember but it's called Smarter Balanced anyway. So Connecticut sort of went in that direction. There's some controversy around that assessment as well. I think there is agreement that something needs to be developed in place of the current MCAS. The current MCAS is not necessarily a good measure of the new Common Core and the new next generation science standards that are about to be adopted.
So if they changed from MCAS to something else in November, when would that take effect?
2017. Yeah.
And do we have a choice? Because I think it was last year, we had a
We had
choice
a
between
vote.
MCAS and Park.
Right, because they were piloting the Park exam, and you could pilot it based on, whether or not you took it by computers or took it by paper and pencil. And some districts said, we know the MCAS is going to sunset because that's where they are. Is the MCAS will sunset in 2017. What's going to replace it is at stake here, and whether it will be the Park or some other test, or they contract out. Put out an RFP and somebody comes to the table with a proposal to develop a new testing protocol. So it will be all, let's wait and see what happens. So
Yeah.
November State Board of Ed meeting will be one everybody will be watching for sure.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for
Yes.
A lot of information. Thanks for taking
lot of
time to put them together.
Well, again, you can't look at it just one way. You've got to look at it, and the state easily gives you your comparisons to them and historical data, but it doesn't do the cohort data. So, I just basically went in and dragged data around from spreadsheet to spreadsheet because I think it's important to look at what are mostly the same group of children and how are those children doing as they progress as a group through the system, because I think that informs a little more of how the results really are going for kids. So,
Great. Thanks a lot.
you're welcome. I'll turn this off so I won't blind Deanne.
Thank you.
We'll try to switch to. Next item is the school choice request for
Yes.
grade 12.
There is a memorandum in your packet. I was approached about school choice for grade 12. Currently you do not offer grade 12 choice seats, and most school districts don't for all the obvious reasons. They are, seniors, and that transition in the senior year of high school is a pretty difficult one to make. There are times when a 12th grader moves into another district. Do we let that 12th grader stay? And that's basically the crux of what I have been asked. And of course, that's your purview, not mine. So that's why I've come to you to ask how you want to go about this. I would not recommend that you just open the gates to 12th grade choice, because I don't think that's a good idea. But if you want to vest me with the authority of taking a look at a request on a case-by-case basis, and if it seems like to be in the best interest of the student to have them stay here or have them choice in for whatever reason, that, I would do that with Mr. Cavallo's input.
One question.
Mm-hmm.
Do you recommend that we revisit this every year and just vote on it at the first meeting every year, or does it make sense to say, well, this is what it is, and make it a policy?
Technically, you're supposed to declare choice seats. I can't remember what the date is, but it's like late May or early June. You're supposed to declare, hi, we have X number of choice seats in these grade levels. We don't have choice available in those grade levels. For example, we did no choice in second grade because of the reduction of staff. No choice in kindergarten because of the reduction in staff. And then you opened up seats in other grade levels, not all of which have been filled, so we're still getting some requests for like middle schoolers and whatever who want to come in, so certainly they come in. Once they come in as choice, they stay with us as choice, because that's what happens unless the parent decides for some reason to go back to the home district. But in this particular case, the question I have been asked is somebody who has moved out of town, whether or not that student could stay with us to finish out the senior year. And again, I need to take a look at the circumstances around it. So, again, my recommendation would not be to open the floodgates, because oftentimes when you're asked to choice in at the high school level, it's because they're escaping a problem in their home district.
So technically, this isn't really a choice at this point. I mean, this is a family that lived in town,
Mhm.
and they moved out of town.
Yes. So the law is very specific. Chapter 76, Section 5, says quite clearly that it's where the child lays his or her head at night. So, from that perspective, technically you move out, you go to the school district where you reside.
I thought you could, if you did it in the middle of the school year, you could finish out the year in that district.
Mm-mm.
We haven't done that here before.
I
I
don't
wanna
know.
think
I
that-
don't know. It could be that it has been done,
And they
but
usually just say, okay, well, the child can get himself or herself here and
you know,
continue and not worry about whether
Right.
it's a choice or not.
but again, you've got those issues around, you know, where are the funds going? If the family has moved out of town, you have no tax dollars to support the student. And I hate to sound like a mercenary, but, you know, with a tight budget, if a child gets declared as choice, money comes our way.
Well, maybe not, yes, but technically, more than likely, somebody moved into that residence and is making up the difference in the tax dollars.
One would hope, but,
I
you know,
would
but,
assume
you know,
that.
but I mean, one student, I mean, you multiply that times a gazillion kids and then all of it, you know, or I shouldn't say gazillion, but several students,
No, I
you know.
agree, it's case by case. I
Right.
mean, in this case, it just seems like an awful thing to do,
Mm-hmm.
to
So
say.
this student's already
You've
moved
gone
out?
here
Yes.
all of your-
I agree.
all
And
your career, but in 12th
where is he or she
grade,
going to
sorry.
school now?
We can't do it.
in a neighboring district, because of student records and our small population, I'm not gonna divulge all that.
Okay.
Because I wanna
understand
keep
that,
that
but-
close to the vest,
So they're not going to school here.
right, at the moment. So, you know,
So this will allow you to actually get into that conversation and
right, and then
make a determination.
make a determination what is the best placement for the child, you know,
Okay.
whether it's to
And
stay
what you're
here.
asking is authorization from school committee to evaluate these cases on a case by case
Mhm.
basis. And what I'm trying to understand is this: are we saying this is for this school year,
Yeah.
and then we're okay?
Yeah, and then you would declare seats again. It's an annual
Okay.
thing that you do.
Yeah. Great. Is there a
That
motion?
makes sense then.
I make a motion to approve school choice for grade 12 for this year, this academic year.
Wide open?
No, on a case-by-case basis.
Okay, thank you.
I'll second that.
Any other discussion, comments? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Thank you.
Thank you. Alrighty. What do we got next? We have an out-of-state field trip that's really not a school-sponsored field trip. It's the Granby Parents Music Association, but when Mr. Williams came to me to talk to me about this, because students can attend this trip, we just felt that it was in the student's best interest and in the district's best interest to bring the trip to you. Basically on April 9th, the Parents Association would like to do a trip to New York City. There may be students who would not be accompanied by a parent that Mr. Williams, would provide supervision for. To be able to do this, they're going to go to several places, and I should know this by now, but I don't. They're going to go see Wicked, I think. Plus, they're going to, go to, I think, the public library and an art museum and, several different things. But because students are going to be on the trip, he and I both agreed that it was probably best to bring it to you for consideration. All of the paperwork is in order. I have reviewed the application. I asked Mr. Williams to get a report on the buses, because your policy requires that they have a satisfactory rating from the NTSA, and these buses do. No accidents, no deaths, drivers check out well, vehicles check out well, so.
Make a motion to approve the Grand Music Parent Association leisure bus trip to New York City, April 9, 2016.
Is there a second? Okay. Is there any comments, questions? I actually appreciate that you decided to bring it to the school committee. I was a little confused that it's coming to the school committee and it's not a school trip, but at least, since there are so many students who will potentially participate, I'm happy that it is being discussed here. The one thing that I hope is not going to be deterrent for some of the students is the cost, but that's something that I'm sure they're going to take care of.
Yeah, I believe the music parents are going to subsidize kids who may have difficulty
Good.
with that.
Good to hear. Okay. So all in favor to approve the motion, please say aye.
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 Thank you.
Thank you.
And then West Street School has been the recipient, or is about to be the recipient, of a couple of donations, which is kind of nice. We have a parent who worked for Vivint, which is a solar technology energy firm, and the company wanted to do some sort of community service project, so they would like to paint West Street's playground. And Ms. Bartlett believes that she's going to get a lead from Home Depot on being able to donate the paint, and if not, she's got some student activity money that paint could be purchased but they're pretty good about donating things. So that's the first thing that I would ask for your approval of, is to allow the Vivint employees to paint the West Street School playground, and if we are able to get paint donated from Home Depot, that you would approve that or accept that donation as well. So we'll do these one at a time. How's that?
Are they painting the playground equipment?
Yeah, yeah, like the posts and whatever. Give it a little boost.
Can I just say, all right, I'll make a motion to approve the
Vivint. No, it's actually, the second A is supposed to be an I.
Thanks.
Vivint.
Thank
Just
you.
trying to confuse you.
Now I lost my train of thought.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Approve the donation of painting,
Yeah, the labor to paint.
the labor to paint the West Street playground
I'll
Yeah.
second,
equipment.
I'll second that.
Okay.
Is there any- That was good. Is there any question, comment? Okay, all in favor, please say aye.
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 And I assume the paint goes along with it, should we get that donated?
Yeah. This is coming soon too, Columbus Day
Yes.
weekend.
Yeah.
Yep.
The second donation was, we had a parent who just wanted to express appreciation to the school for what they've done for his child, and has offered up $1,000 to be used at the school's discretion. I did check into the policy at your request, Mr. Chairman, and found out that there is no, the policy references a form, there is no form.
Okay.
So,
Good. So that's
so evidently that's something that needs to be done in the policy arena when we get there. But anyway, Ms. Bartlett said upon your approval, what she would do is then deposit the funds with the town treasurer, and then work with the teachers to figure out what would be a good way to spend the $1,000 there.
So just to clarify, the KCD or KDC, whatever, the policy is that relates to gifts to the school is referring to a form. So I was asking whether there was a form, because there was none. Apparently there is no form. And the other thing is that there's actually reference to when it's a cash donation, it being used a certain way or expensed a certain way.
Right,
So-
basically, the policy says the school committee has the authority to deem how the money is spent. The parent's intent is that it's to be spent at West Street School, so that's why we're asking for your approval to spend it at West Street School in line with the intent of the parent.
And the decision on where it's going to be spent will be made by you, or?
Will be made by the principal with the input from the staff.
Okay.
And your approval, too?
Yes. Mhm.
And that's going in the student activity account?
Yeah, it'll go into a revolving account. We've got either that or the early childhood revolving account, one place or the other.
Okay.
And will we hear follow-up as
Sure.
to what was decided?
Mhm.
Please.
Okay, so is there a motion for the second item?
I'll make a motion to accept the $1,000 donation from a parent for use at the West Street School.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Okay. Any discussions, comments?
One comment. You said that the funds go to the town administrator first.
They go to the town treasurer for deposit in a revolving account,
Okay,
yeah.
I guess I just want to make sure that the funds get used, if they get
Oh, yeah.
designated and
No,
used.
the
where they're
town
supposed to be
treasurer
used.
knows
And
all
they
of
don't
the
get
revolving,
lost
no,
in
no.
the shuffle
No.
somewhere and somehow end up in some general fund
No.
and
No, this happens all the time. Athletics, revolving accounts, any of that kind of stuff. That all goes through student activity funds. All goes through the town treasurer. And
Quite a bit.
My guess is